Welcome to our Goddess Voice Academy call to tune to our hearts with Green Tara. And I'm just thrilled to be here with her at the moment. She's so present. I don't know if it's just me, but I think that there is a profound need for us to listen to our hearts at this time on the earth. You know, there's so much pressure to live in fear. There are so many stories that tell us to live in fear. And I want to bring up, to start with, this idea around listening. So I don't personally think that people are very good at listening. I think it is very challenging for us to listen deeply. I think it is very challenging for us to not only listen to other human beings very deeply, but to listen to spirit very deeply. And not only is it difficult to listen to spirit, it's actually difficult to do what spirit tells us, for a start. You know, our inner guidance, listen and then act on that guidance. And it's also difficult for us to not listen in a way where we listen, we get a bit of information, we get a bit of juice, we get an intuitive hit, and then we go, oh, that's exciting, I've got that. And then we run off and we start to do things with that moment, that glimpse, that glimpse. It's like a glimpse. And we don't always continue to sit and receive and listen more. So that the mind loves to grab those first moments of intuition and then say, oh, got it, right, let's do this with it. And when it does, what tends to happen is the human will comes in and starts to impose on that intuitive moment. You know, we want to do what we want to do with our intuition, don't we? We have that real kind of impulse to use our intuition to fulfill our human needs and our human desires and our human purposes. And the kind of listening that Green Tara asks us to do is to listen in a way that is very deeply surrendered and is very full of humility, and that is almost like an elongated, extending listening. So we don't necessarily jump up and run, which is my tendency, when we first get that moment of intuition or that insight. But we sit with the light for longer, and we sit with the listening for longer, and we say, is that all there is? How do you want me? You know, whether you're talking to guidance or your higher self or your soul or source, how can I best serve this piece of intuitive information? So that's what we're looking at with Green Tara. We're looking at where we might be wanting to listen a bit, just to get enough, just to help us fulfill, you know, the thing that we want over here, or whether we are listening in a way that is truly surrendered, even if it is uncomfortable and takes us away from what we think the mind thinks is the right way of getting where we want to go. And even if it takes us away from the things that we really want at the moment. And yeah, so this is what we're looking at, this idea of listening to the heart with humility and with trust and with self-acceptance and self-love and really surrendering. All right, so I'm going to jump straight into the meditation today. I'll just check and see, is there any questions? Let's have a look. Doggy! All right, I'll pop on. Okay. So, green Tara. I imagine most of you are familiar with green Tara. She is the Asian goddess who is the goddess of the heart, the goddess of the sacred word, the goddess of compassion and wisdom, the goddess who sings the song of love on earth, the goddess who sings the song of how to walk with the heart on the earth. It's not just a disconnected from the earth experience, it's how to live it here, how to walk our truth here. I'm just going to make sure that everyone's muted. And she sits in the lotus, and one foot touches the earth, just to give us that indication that all the divine impulses flow through to the earth. Does she have any stories and mythology? Not quite understanding who she is. All right, Sarah, I might let you have an experience of her, and then I'll tell the stories of green Tara. Okay. Not happy with this sound, sorry. That's a bit better. All right. So she's going to take us into the heart of the heart. So breathing deeply and offering up your heart and your voice and your deep listening to green Tara this morning. What words does she have for us? What vision of the heart does she have for us? So imagine yourself now gently encased in a ball of white light. This is a safe place for you. And you walk to a place in nature which is soft and beautiful for you. You're surrounded by this white light. And we call in the four archangels, Archangel Gabriel, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, to hold the four corners of the space for us and to ground this wisdom on the earth. And green Tara enters. She's very green. And she reaches out and she places a hand upon your heart. And you feel her light moving into your heart. Slowly feel her light moving out the back of your heart. Moves out the back and slowly starts to wrap around your heart center. Embracing the sides until the light meets at the front of the heart, over the top of your heart. Underneath, encasing your heart fully in green light, healing light. And she offers you quiet, so allow yourself to become very, very quiet. All the voices in your head, the demands of your body, let them be soothed by this green light of green taro. Now you allow this light to fill your whole being. You are radiant with light. And there are golds and other colors moving through. Colors that you need to nourish your soul. Green is the container for all colors. Let green tara sing in those healing lights, almost like the aurora borealis. She asks you now to place an ear inside your heart. This ear is a gift. It is a gift from Green Tara. It is part of how she hears the sounds of the world. Deep into the heart you go, deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, carrying this gift in your hands outstretched before you, deeper and deeper into the green, until you find a place to put this ear down. And suddenly you are encased in the seashell of the ear. Find a place where you can make yourself comfortable. Sit within this ear and start to listen. How does your soul wish to merge with you? How does your soul wish to speak with you? Don't rush this. Don't rush it. Just surrender and start to listen. And she's opening up now the lineage for you, whether it is down the mother line or down the father line. There is a lineage of light opening up for you to walk along, actually. You can walk along this DNA thread, this line, and just notice what is there and listen to what is there on this line, this lineage path. Listen to the voices that speak to you along the way, the people that speak to you along the way, the beings, whether it is stones or plants, animals or humans, spirit, elements. And she reminds you to listen with the ear of love, not the ear of the mind, but the ear of the heart. With love, filter everything you encounter through deep and profound and all-encompassing love. So much love for what you hear now is streaming forth. And gently now, coming back, slowly turning to travel back along that DNA line. And as you walk, every step that you take is a step of light, almost like a burst of light beneath your feet. And you walk closer and closer into the heart until you come to rest in that seashell ear, that giant seashell. And Tara whispers to you. She gives you a message. And slowly you emerge from deep, deep, deep within the heart into the heart of the here and now. Send light from your heart to all beings. Send light from your heart to those you are in relationship with. Send light from your heart to yourself. We give thanks, Green Tara, for your wisdom, for your sacred word. And she puts her hand on your heart once more, and you feel this blaze of light and sweetness. And all the sounds of the world become sweeter. This is what you can tune to. You can tune to the voice of love behind all things and within all things. We give thanks, Green Tara, for your presence. We give thanks for your life and your light and your wisdom. And slowly she withdraws, but she's always there. She will never truly go if we wish her to be there. She's simply a call away. We say her name, Green Tara. Help me, Green Tara, help me hear the voice of my heart. And she will surround your heart in her green light of compassion and wisdom. And so slowly, slowly, make your way back to normal consciousness. Breathe and stretch. We give thanks to the 4 archangels for holding the space for us. So she's going to be in the group this week, Green Tara. She's going to be really present in the group. So jump in there, post what you're experiencing, what you're going through, and yeah, really interact with her this week. Again, don't just sort of grab that bit and then put it aside. Really take her offerings into your practice for the whole week, into your daily life for the whole week. Really, really allow yourself to be present with her and walk with her and keep surrendering to what is it to listen to my heart. Swati, you felt such a deep peace. Yeah, I know. It's just really, really beautiful, isn't it? That peacefulness. The peace that passes all understanding, they call it, don't they? We don't have to interpret it with our minds. So how was that, gorgeous ones? Yeah, she was beautiful. Any questions or any I didn't get it moments? Because they're valid too. You know, sometimes we don't, it's not all love and light. Sometimes we're really offered something that is a challenge so that we can understand more deeply through the challenge rather than through oh, it's all lovely. So the challenges offer us a pathway into that deep understanding as well. Yeah. It's very deep spit and polish right to your DNA. Yeah, she was really getting in there, wasn't she? Like, she wasn't holding back. And that lineage walk is something that she can help us do safely. You know, the heart is this portal to, well, it's the pump, isn't it? The heart circulates everything through the body. So if we listen to the heart, then everything that we listen to is circulated through us completely. And spirit is like this vortex that pulls our understanding. If we understand within the heart, then it pulls that understanding into every other part of our body. And if we let ourselves listen to where that spiritual flow is moving in the blood and in the sort of movement of energy through the body, then we can really start to sort of waken up, really become much more awake to what we are asleep to in our body. Like, what is our body saying as it circulates that light? Kelly, she showed you that DNA is created, not just passed on to create our future. Yeah, totally. And I think this is one of the things that we underestimate about ourselves as humans, is that we can totally co-create with the divine. We can co-create anything, absolutely anything. You know, there is that part of ourselves that if we listen and if we surrender enough, and if we get out of the mind, you know, the mind wanting to take charge of how that looks, then yeah, the mind can be in service to how it looks in the spiritual realms, and how we can move that spiritual energy through to the earthly realm. You know, we're such a vehicle for that. We're such a vehicle. Isn't that exciting? Yeah, beautiful. Sarah, you feel like you're not ready for the work. Yeah. All right. And so I guess this happens when we have a big body of work to bring through. And when we have a big body of work to bring through, which is usually how to birth some sort of big body of spiritual work here into the material form, then it gets very scary, because it's like, oh, how do I do that? You know, do I have the skill sets? I'm not ready. I'm not enough. I haven't figured out this yet. And again, that's where we get out of the mind. The mind has no place in this controlling how it comes through. And if we spend time more often with spirit, with a guide like Green Tara, or goddess like Green Tara, or our own guides, then they'll show us just the little bit that's here to be done next. You know, what do I do in the next 5 minutes to bring through this body of work? What do I do in the next hour to bring through this body of work? We don't have to go further ahead than that ever. We really don't. And you know, we're up here and we vision, and we love to vision, and we love to see, because we are seers. And so that's exciting to vision ahead, but it also scares us, doesn't it? It scares us. And it's like, how can I possibly realize that possibility, that vision, that potential? And that's where we come into the body. We come into the root chakra, the sacral, the solar plexus, you know, that energy center. We come into that soul space of feeling it before we think it, before we act it. And from that place, feeling and tuning in, that's when we decide what actions should be taken, and that's when we decide what to think. Yeah, the vision can leap us right out, or even just that inner GPS we have, where we think, I can feel it. You know, so many of us can feel this thing coming towards us, circling, that's huge, and it's like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for this. So this work of grounding with these goddesses in the body helps us to embody the next tiny little step of light, because that's all it is. It's the next step of light. And if we keep taking that next step of light, and keep trusting and keep taking that next step of light, and not worry too much about the big vision, even though the big vision is exciting, we're going to get more done. Okay. And Sarah, you know, there are other things being spoken, but they're muffled or in another language of sorts. Yeah. So with this hearing things in different languages, hearing the voice of spirit, we get glimpses. And this is what I mean when I said at the beginning, we get these glimpses, and we tend to either grab the glimpse and say, okay, now I've got to figure out how to make a structure of this glimpse. Or else we go, well, that's not enough. Like, where's the rest of the glimpse? Can I have the whole package? That's too hard. And it's this taking time to sit with spiritual frequency, to sit with vibration in your body, and learn to listen to those languages that are muffled, that are hidden, that are as yet uninterpretable. like your path, Sarah, is to learn to listen to those things until you can hear them. Not here and now, there's something wrong with me because I can't hear them. It's like, I can't hear them. Okay. I've got to go into 3 years of sitting with Green Tara, sitting with my spirit guide, or sitting with one of the archangels, or whoever comes in to do that work, to learn to listen until I can hear and understand. These things take years. They take years. I used to be really frightened of saying that until this call. Because I was thinking, oh my God, I don't want to scare people off. You know, we all want the quick fix, don't we? And it's like, oh, come on. It took you 10 years to learn to train to sing properly. Like, get over it. That's how long it takes. It's the same with the spiritual stuff. It takes that long. So, yeah. Sarah, if you are hearing those things, one, I would say, freaking awesome, like how amazingly, fabulously gorgeous. And then, yes, you may not be ready to do the work in the way that you vision, but you are ready to do it here, like this close to you. Yeah. I hope that helps. Teresa started listening to the surrender experiment, all about surrendering our personal will and being in the flow of spirit. Yeah, exactly. And Beck says, trust that it's happening, Sarah. Yeah, this huge trust. Trust is big. It takes a while for us to trust ourselves. Yes, and to translate it and bring it forth for humanity. You know, realistically, we're all kind of doing that, aren't we? We're all translators of the frequency that we are gifted to experience, you know, through our own soul and our own guide, and then to say, okay, how do I turn that into human language and human action? Challenging. Swati, in your meditation, you put your ear to the crepe myrtle tree in your front yard. I love crepe myrtles in the shell, almost as if she was inviting you to listen to it. That's gorgeous. Yeah. And Sarah, yeah, you don't have the vision, and so now is what you have, and you're impatient. I totally get impatient. I'm so impatient. Oh my God. I just want to get on that horse and gallop, and it's like, oh, you have to build the website, and I have to slow down and tune in every day for longer than I have the impulse, you know, that impulse to, oh, yes. And Suzanne, feeling the similar fear about speaking up about the time it takes. I know. So we have to, yeah. Interesting, isn't it? And I guess if we speak to the courage and the excitement of the journey, and this is where storytelling actually really helps, because people do get frightened by the idea that it might take them 5 years, or it might take them 3 years, or it might take them 10 years. And so we tell stories, because stories give us an outcome, all right? Stories always have an ending. And if we tell a story of the person that did this and then did that and then did this and then there they were at the end and this miracle happened, then people's fear relaxes, the fear softens. That's like, yeah, I can feel that story. I can feel that I could have that outcome, and it's okay that it takes longer. So I think stories and metaphors are probably just about the most powerful way to speak to that fear of not getting there. So Suzanne, yeah, start finding the stories, go researching the stories that tell the success, you know, the struggle and then the success. Find them and start telling them. We're doing that in Chakra Voice. It's root chakra stuff. It's base chakra. Tell your stories. Find the stories. Go hunting for the stories. Write down the stories. I'm getting, really should have about 20 stories And if you have 40 stories, that's even better. And you'll probably end up telling 3 of them over and over and over and over and over and over again. But people love stories, so that's okay. Think of how many times. Yep, 20 stories about yourself and your life. Yeah. Yeah. And that are relevant to your work, so they're teaching stories. They're not just blah, 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 me, me, me. They could be about you, they could be about somebody else, but they are purposeful in that they are teaching elements. And you can teach through your, relaying your own experience, or someone else's experience, or the sort of archetypal stories. How do we know which stories are useful or relevant? Okay, this is where you start to line up what your message is. What are the themes? What are the 4 pillars of your message? What are the 4, the north, south, east, and west of your message that you continually come back to? For me, one of mine is courage. I always, when it comes to the voice, I have to tell stories about courage for people. Another one is, for me, is, the magic of the voice. So that sort of thing. If you've got 4 pillars, you can take it to 5 if you want to go feminine. But 4 is the number of the earth, the solid foundations, that pyramid upon which you build. And so the 4 thematic pillars of your message, and you think, is that story relevant? Does it have anything to do with one of those themes? And if it doesn't, or if you can't make it relevant, then it's probably not the story for your message, but it might be a story in a different situation. So, for instance, at the Heart-Centered Business Conference in March, I hopped up on stage and I demonstrated the story of Joan of Arc as to how to focus on how to connect to an audience. So connecting to an audience is one of my themes. And, so stories, Joan of Arc, courage, inspiration, connecting to an audience, how to listen, how to hear. So it really fitted in. Martha, is there a guide out there to make this story choosing easier? I don't know. I can't answer that question. There may be. Great question. Wouldn't that be good? All right. Among the many millions of things to do, might have to create that. Oh, Suzanne, yeah. The Joan of Arc story was so good. And you know why, Suzanne? You know why it resonated with you? Because you're courageous. Because what you do speaks to pure courage, and that courage to go into battle with the shadow, and conquer the shadow. And so that story is the story of your work as well. And Teresa, you find this challenging. Okay, Teresa, what is your core message? I'm going to pop you on here because doing this with you will be really good.
Oh, I'm freaking out.
Yeah, great. I know. Look, everyone does. I freak out with my core message. I see they go, I don't know.
Oh God. Yeah, because I don't know. There's so many things I can do and so many things I can talk about, but to actually narrow it right down. And sometimes it's better for me to ask other people what they perceive in me, because it's hard to see ourselves sometimes.
All right. So what have you got so far from talking to people? What are some of them so far? Just a few.
Well, courage is one, definitely.
Yep.
Very courageous, very adventurous, trusting in the divine.
Yep, great. So some courage stories, some trusting in the divine stories. What about the female who recreates it, the woman who recreates herself? What about a few of those stories?
Yeah, because
And
that's
what
kind of
about,
what I do.
yeah, yeah. And what about a few stories about sound healing?
What do you mean by stories about sound healing?
Okay. So stories about sound healing this is where we can go to mythology. So we take an Egyptian story about when I was at the temple of blah, blah, blah in Egypt. I stood there and I tuned in and I could feel the sounds in the stone talking to me. And from those sounds came forth a message, and the message was blah, 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 blah. And I knew from that moment that I had been reconnected to something in me that I had forgotten. And what I want to say to you, and then you speak to the audience and you say, what have you forgotten? That is a gift, that is a power within you that you want to awaken to once more. All right, because many of us are rebirthing these ancient gifts.
Mm.
And so you know, see how short that story was, and see how
Oh,
I flipped it immediately into, it was only a few lines.
oh, can I channel you?
This is what we have to get good at. We have to,
Yeah, the storytelling. I'm just,
honestly, I'm channeling you. That's for you. Do you know what I mean? That I haven't been to Egypt. I haven't, like, do you know what I mean? It's like that's what I do.
okay. So,
Yeah.
like going to the story of when I was in Egypt and going
Yes.
like those sorts of stories.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Because see, I don't know that they're relevant to a lot of my life experiences. I don't know how to make them relevant to what it is that I'm talking about.
Yeah, you make them relevant. You will them to be relevant.
You
I mean,
will be relevant.
how this is relevant because it's really cool. It's a cool story, and I'm going to find the link. So this is what we call the link.
It's bringing up my shit about being cool because I've never been the cool girl.
Yeah. The thing is that the story is cool though. So we look at the stories that are just great little snippets, and they could be just a few lines, and then we say, that's the story. I'll tell it in the most exciting way, in the most embodying it, feeling it, you know, enacting it way. And then I'll make it short so I don't bore people stupid, and I won't rabbit on about myself. And then I will find the link. And the link is the teaching point. The link is the point that teaches how this story is relevant to your message, and your message is always about them. Everything is always about the audience.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, so it's that link that we have to get quite academic. Well, like we have to work our minds, we have to work our intelligence to create the link. It's not a. Sometimes we'll be inspired. Most of the time, we have to sit down and knock it out. Not nut it out. Sorry, knock it
Yep. Thank you.
out. Whatever that word is. Um, yeah, and that's where we. Yeah, so that's where there's work there. So storytelling does involve a certain amount of work and honing, and then acting it out and testing it, trying it out in your voice so that your voice gets used to it, and then trying it out in your body so your body gets used to it. So everything we speak has to actually, our body has to get used to speaking it. Our body has to, there's a vocal gesture. Speaking is a fully embodied gesture. It's not just here and it's not just here. Our whole body has to speak, our voice has to speak, and it has to get used to it and familiar with it. And then we bring our emotions and our feelings and our expression into it. And then we make sure that the mind is always saying, is this relevant? You know, like be succinct. Is this relevant, or are you just kind of fluffing on here and waffling? So that's what we use our mind for, the analysis, the discernment, the, you know, that real black and white, yes, no, get rid of that, keep that. The whole practicing storytelling And then, of course, if you bring it to what we're talking about today, which is listening to the heart, how can you bring love into this? How can this be in deep, deep, deep vibrational service, this story? Like, what is the deepest service that I can offer through this story to the people who are listening to me?
Oh, I'm feeling it right now. The tears.
Yeah. Because without that, it's like you're an entertainer.
It's wah, 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 wah.
Not necessarily.
Whereas I want them to feel me.
Yeah.
And that's that connection that, yeah.
And like, the entertainment factor is great, and the embodiment factor is great. We feel great when we know we're telling a good story. And yeah, just to make it relevant to today, that we truly connect it to the heart as well. And the heart is in compassionate and loving service to all beings and all things, including yourself. Kelly, where we feel the challenge is where we expand into greater wisdom. Yup. Beautiful. Yeah. And one way of collecting stories is to just read, and read what people, inspirational books, what the stories other people tell. Usually when we read someone else's story, we usually get sparked for our own. That's a really kind of common thing that happens. We'll read someone's story and go, oh yeah, and then immediately our story for us comes through. So it's really great to, Wayne Dyer and, all those great storytellers who write books that are, or audios that kind of are a mixture of wisdom teachings and storytelling, because that's what you're doing. You're mixing up your wisdom and your storytelling, and your selling your message, marketing your message in this lovely, big, juicy, well practiced, well voiced package. But it's the practice that really helps us, and it's the sitting in the body with spiritual frequency to listen first, rather than figuring out from our mind what way to go first. Listen first. Yeah. Any other questions? I'll just check the 20 stories, and I will a guide to how to choose a story. All right. I'll work on that. Okay, so for me, one of my messaging things is storytelling is becoming more and more and more important to my work. I keep telling people to tell stories. Like every program I'm running at the moment, I'm telling people to run stories, to learn how to speak stories. So that it changes. So I'm obviously going to have to go and find some stories about storytellers, learning to be storytellers, that sort of thing. So we do have to do a bit of research. And for those of us who aren't researchers, it's like, don't make me research. But some people love it. And it's a good skill to have. And it actually gives us authority. So doing a bit of research really lends authority. You think of someone like Brené Brown. All her stories are grounded in research. She is a researcher. She's a social researcher. But how powerful are her stories? Because they are based in research, And obviously that's her zone where she is comfortable. And for those of us who are not comfortable in the zone of research, we just have to use our will to go there, or else say, universe, put a story in front of me. Like, just let me find a story that is relevant. That can happen too. We can ask it to be manifested. Yeah, and Donna, Teresa, you can relate to not seeing how experiences are relevant. Yes. Your story, your personal, when I was 20, when I was 25, when I was 30, when I was 35, when I was 40, that's one way to do it, is to get a story of your journey of awakening from each 5-year cycle. Stories, one quick shortcut with stories is start with a time and a place. That's the quickest way into a story. I was 13 years old and I was standing on the edge of a waterfall, and I just so desperately wanted to jump off and fly, and I could feel the rush of water behind me, and luckily I had kind of grounded myself up in growing up enough to know that I couldn't fly, and yet that feeling in my body of wanting to fly lives with me still. I want to feel that inspiration. That inspiration helps me lift and spread my wings and fly over the earth and just be able to achieve anything and do anything. Do you feel like that? Do you ever feel like you just want to be so inspired that you can do anything? Boom. Short story. So that's how you do it. It's very quick, it's very efficient, and you can make anything relevant. Absolutely anything. As long as you know what your pillars, your themes are that you need to talk about in your business. And yeah, just grab a story from each 5-year increment. And when we have synthesized our experience fully, we can start to see the relevance it has to our journey and how it can help others. Swati, you're so right. And the thing is, though, with storytelling, you don't have to wait to have fully synthesized something. This is what's, like the waterfall one. You can just grab a moment in time and redirect it to the theme you want to talk about. And I think it is so much easier to speak about a fully kind of integrated understanding, but we don't have to wait for it. We don't. We don't have to be fully integrated. So, and that's one of the beauties of storytelling, is that we can make it relevant to what we understand in this moment in time. This is where we're at. There's a lot of freedom in storytelling, to just make it what you want it. But I would definitely start playing with that and then run it through the heart before you speak it, and see what it's like to tell the stories of the heart. That'd be really nice to do this week, actually. Maybe I've just done a story building challenge in chakra voice for the base chakra. Maybe we should do a story challenge in GVA, but a heart story like heart stories. I think we should action this. Yeah. All right. That's what we're going to do. All right. Awesome. Story challenges everywhere. Okay, gorgeous ones. Any other questions or anything like that? Otherwise, spend the week with Green Tara, taking the time, surrendering with, I guess, that deep, deep, extended listening. And just notice when the mind comes in and tries to grab hold of the comprehension, the aha, the intuitive hit, and do too much with it. It's like, what would it be like to just go, no, let's see what else there is. Shh, be quiet. I'm listening to my heart, not listening to the mind. Play with that. All right, and I'll contrive and put together the Stories of the Heart challenge for this week. Love it. Yay! All right, excellent. Bye, everybody, and I will see you all next week. See you. Thank you.